America, my name is Iremi Osei-Frimpong, and you're watching The Black Athenians. I come to you every Friday about 4-ish to talk about local politics. And when I mean local politics, I mean any sort of local politics where there is a sizable black population that's broke and a sizable white population that's not. Because if you've watched any of my shows, I suspect that the sizable black population is broke because the sizable white population is not. There's what you call a predatory relationship, that we need the quality of politics that will redress in order for black communities to be made whole in these United States. So today we're going to talk about, last week I talked about teacher training, and the show, I got some pretty good feedback from it. And it was about how we don't really train teachers to teach black students to secure the power that they need in order to be made whole in the United States. We need to teach black students political organizing. We need to teach black students about the levers of political power and social power, and not so much soft skills and financial literacy. All that stuff's nice, but we don't have finances. So teaching people financial literacy without finances is always a kind of a sad thing. I remember talking to a guy in Charlotte, and he gave me this long disquisition about the stock market. Black guy, baby boomer age. And afterwards, I was like, so how much you have invested? He was like, oh, no, I don't have anything in stock. I was like, oh, yeah, because, I'm in the middle of Charlotte and you're just a black guy I met on the street. So, yeah, you don't have anything. But you knew a lot of things. So financial literacy itself is not going to do anything for black communities except waste our time. Before the end of my dad's life, he got into Ameritrade. And, that's what it is. But that's not what we need right now. That's not what we need right now. What we need right now is for a broad base to know what political power looks like so we can secure budgets, and move them over to the black community, budgets and assets over to the black community. We need that kind of control. And that kind of control takes political organizing, and political organizing itself is a quality of expertise. So we need teachers to teach that. And Daniel Allen wrote this great book about how we actually make enough money in the United States. It's a distribution. So what we need for justice is actually people who can force the distribution through channels it should go to get to the people who need, justice in the form of money. And I like my justice in the form of money, preferably cash. So, how do you like your justice?
Bills,
bearer bonds.
Small, you know what? I'll take them in ones. To be perfectly honest,
I take my justice in ones. There's lots of them. Give me a big old bag of mine. So,
I want Scrooge McDuck ones. I'm just saying.
Yeah. So, what does justice look like for black communities? Not just cash, but it includes cash. So, I talk about that, and then this week I want to talk about mental health. Training and kind of the mental health field in the United States, because one of our local commissioners remarked that, look, with this poverty in Athens, we have a huge mental health problem. And that's true. We do have a mental health problem, but that mental health problem will not be fixed by mental health professionals unless those mental health professionals are serious about the poverty, right? Because I think Malcolm X said this probably the best when he said, look, if you're an alcoholic and you get sober, and if you're broke, you're an alcoholic and you get sober, the problem is you wake up, you're still broke. So you're self-medicating for something that didn't actually, we were addressing the symptoms. So that's why I think of a lot of the MSWs and a lot of the social workers that I've met, and I've met 50. I'm not thinking because maybe I overestimated. I'm thinking maybe because I've underestimated. I've probably met closer to 100 MSWs. I've been around schools that produce MSWs, so I've probably met closer to 100 MSWs, and most of them have been garbage, hot trash. Because, well, it's a 2-year degree, whether you leave thinking you know a lot more things than you know. And so we're going to talk about not necessarily the MSW degree in particular, but what these people do when they get into my schools.
Or agencies.
Or agencies in general. And with that said, go ahead and hit the beat.
Yeah. Sound good to me. Never change the ways for the world or the government. If I was the president, then I would state facts. You leave it up to me, I paint the White House black and it can feature in your front.
right, we're back. And so the MSW is a problem because it's a 2-year degree where they teach you that you know everything and you really know very little about most things, especially they get these suburban white women who come in, take a 2-year degree, maybe work with an urban population, and then start talking all their white nonsense. And I need them out of my schools. And this is important because they're talking about we need more counselors in schools. And I think we do. Yes, we do need more counselors in schools. Yes, we do.
You have a master's to be a school counselor?
I think you have to be don't you have to have a master's to be a school counselor?
Oh, okay. Sure. Okay.
Yeah. So, but like a master's in what? Like white suburban nonsense. So, yeah. So yes, we do need more school counselors, and yes, mental health is a problem. But don't make the same mistake we made during integration, where we thought like the idea is that we empower white women teachers to teach black kids, and somehow that's good for black communities. No, that's how you get the beginning of the prison to school pipeline. You got too many white women deciding like what's just in the classroom, and it ends up with black guys getting in ISS and not learning how to read and all of these other things. So I don't want to make the same problem. I don't keep your mental health professionals screwing up your people. Keep them away from my people. If you're going to put these white mental health professionals in black schools, I need them reading Amos Wilson. I need to pick their curriculum. I don't want them to pick their curriculum. I want to pick their curriculum. I need them reading Amos Wilson. I need them reading Bobby Wright. I need them reading Frances Cress Welsing. But most of all, I probably just not need them there. Like, we need to get serious about training. If we want better mental health counselors, we need to train people who didn't grow up with a white suburban mental health milieu that informs their sensibilities around this. And go ahead and say something.
Oh no, I was thinking. So I think the other thing to add to that is we need administrators to be trained to stay out of this area. Just thinking about one of my best friends, school counselor, does all the things. Reads several of those people. We're still working on him to read few more.
Right.
And the moment he makes a suggestion, the administrators are like, "Oh, that's too extreme, and that's not a problem yet. So let's not worry."
Right. So if you're gonna have counselors in schools, they need a quality of autonomy. You need some sort of separation of powers, so that we don't have the executive telling the Supreme Court what to do. So you need some sort of separation of powers, because what's good for the principal might not be good for the health of the student. Also, but more importantly, we need to actually talk about what mental health is, and the history of the discipline, and kind of how we thought about it, and like the effect of what has happened when in popular mental health. It's kind of emerged out of how do we treat kind of a middle and upper middle class white women. How do we treat middle and upper middle class white women? So we did that for 70 years, and then those women ended up becoming mental health professionals with the assumption that everyone's problems mimic those of middle and upper middle class white women. First of all, there's a problem with that because middle and upper middle class white women don't have the same relationship to the job market that black boys do, or anybody else. Let's be honest. They don't even have the same relationship to the job market as white men. Middle and upper middle class white women work when they want to because they want to. Because middle and upper middle class white life gives women the option of not working. That's what it is to be middle and upper middle class white. That is not black life. So getting this MSW who's in there for personal fulfillment. In my school, talking to kids whose job, whose life, and whose stress largely comes from their parents not having a good enough job to actually raise them in America, because their parents were locked out of whatever industry that actually pays in America, because black people, we don't get into the industries that pay. Isn't going to be able to actually minister to the mental health of this child, because they don't know how to talk about jobs. Look, I am tired of these white women who do not know how to talk about the worth of a good job, a good respected job that pays well. I don't need your pills. I don't need your MMDR. What's the EMDR? I don't need any of those gimmicks. I need a good job that pays well. Keep all of that new wage crap. That's all white women stuff that was foisted upon you because nobody cares if you work. Like, black people need good jobs. Bring in your crystals and your chakras and all that stuff and your yogas and your mindfulness after we've secured a good job at a fair wage where we have a reasonable say in the working conditions. And not just for individuals, but for everyone in our communities. And once that happens, I suspect our mental health profile will look markedly different. So these white women who don't know and do not care about labor politics, these white women who do not know and do not care about jobs, and like degrade the relevance of jobs for mental health. I just need them out of like the lives of black communities, because anything that addresses, black stress and black life that doesn't start with securing them a good job at a fair wage, not only for them, but for everyone around them, is just palliative care. That's just palliative care. It's just like, it's not addressing the cancer. It's just giving you dope so you don't feel it. It's just another form of poor medication. So if you're going to concern yourself with mental health in the black community, I need you to be able to talk about the economics of the black community and be able to diagnose that well. And if you can't do that, you're actually a problem. You're actually just a softer form of white supremacy. So get out of my schools. If that's how you address mental health, you just have no business. If you're a moderately attractive to decent looking white woman who studies mental health, just stay away from black people, because your life doesn't look like anything that's going on in black people's lives, and especially black males' life. Because you're just working because you wanna, because you feel like it. Like, you're not working because there's a deeper need to secure both your livelihood and your families around you. So stay out of. Yeah.
What I would also add is the question is, when parent-teacher conference time comes around, parents have to learn to start asking these counselors. So when my child comes to talk to you about the fact that they're stressed out because of the community, the policing in our community, how do you address that?
How do you address that? Do you have the skills to do that? And you probably don't, because the student doesn't. And possibly the parent doesn't, but you're the professional, you're the expert. So if you don't, you just need to get another job, because there are other people who do. Or you need to, like I said, start reading the books I recommend. Because mental health for black communities looks like empowering black communities, not palliative care. Mental health for white communities looks a little bit different, because, honestly, 100 years ago, like, the profession was popularized by husbands sending their wives to shrinks saying, fix her. And the shrinks wasn't going to fix her by empowering her. The shrink was going to fix her by just kind of like making her okay and making her appreciate her subjugation. So 80 years later, things aren't much different. 80 years later, things aren't much different. White people don't get fixed by mental health professionals. They just kind of get okay with their subjugation, because white women, their subjugation isn't that bad. It still pays, bills are still paid.
What's up? So I was going to say, I'm always very open about my mental health.
Right.
And so, in a session yesterday, had a great conversation where I was trying to explain to my therapist that what she classifies as PTSD, I call being black.
I call that Tuesday.
Yeah.
I call Tuesday.
And she was very adamant about, I don't deny that, but this is what you suffer from. And I'm like, how do we address a society that created people who suffer from something?
Hello? Is there something wrong with what?
No.
Live? I'm green over here. No, we're good. We're good. All right, keep going.
And how do we address that? And her response was, you're right. That is something we need to address. And I was like, I'll probably mention this. I didn't know what we were going to do for a topic today. I'm like, I'll probably mention this on the show. And she immediately was like, that's a good idea, but I was actually also talking about my industry.
Yeah. The industry needs
that's why you're a keeper.
Look, I've spoken to a lot of mental health professionals, and the industry is so bad. Right? So like, I was giving a talk, and we know that pastors tailor their sermons every Sunday to, oftentimes the richest family or set in the congregation. That's a problem for pastors. Like, so they have to make sure that they're not, biased insofar as they're tailoring their sermon to the sensibilities of the wealthy. And we know that doctors tend to give better care to wealthier people. And we also know that like C-section rates go up right when like doctors are about to get off because they just want to wipe their hands with it and not worry about it. It's just easier, right? So like there are actually problems with not understanding the professional limits or the professional incentives that go into the caring profession. You talk to therapists about how therapists might be skewed because of the history of the profession. They get real defensive. Would you believe they get real defensive? Oh, no. Oh, no. No, not us. We have ethics. No, you don't. I mean, now you have vague professional ethics, but no policing. Nobody's in that room. Nobody's in that room with you and your charge, and you like it that way because if I were in that room between you and your charge, like you would get real nervous really quickly because you don't know what you're doing and you're faking it. And I know you're faking it. And so, so therapists are like probably the least accountable profession in these United States, given their power because of confidentiality. And they also give you this bull. They'll give you two forms of bull. Therapists will look at. I'll talk to a room full of therapists. We're like, oh no, we don't. Nobody knows the patient more than the patient does. What are you talking about? They're like, I don't. Do you know you're dealing with people who are there because they're in denial about stuff?
I literally get reminded all the time that I am not a standard because I'm hyper analytical about myself.
Yeah, you're not dealing with self-reflective people.
Yeah.
In therapy, like nobody knows you better than you do. I don't even know how I smell, like relative to somebody else who's smelling me. I don't know if my farts stink. I don't know that other people do.
I just can't even imagine what I would do if my therapist ever said that to me. And I'd be like, well, why are you here?
Why are you here? Why do I need you?
What's your job in this situation?
And then you talk to, he's like, you're a professor. What do you know if I'm the expert on myself? I'm going to you because you're supposed to be the expert on stuff. You're supposed to look at what I say and do and tell me something I don't know about myself. Because if I knew myself, I wouldn't need you. If I knew how to diagnose myself. I'm about to go into a cancer doctor. Well, nobody knows your cancer except you.
Or imagine talking to, I don't know, let's say a cardiologist.
It's your heart.
Yeah, I recommended this medicine, but I'm not really sure how it will affect you.
I don't know how it'll affect you. It's your heart. How do you think it's affecting you? I'm going to go to the cardiologist who knows hearts.
No shade tossed at any of my cardiologists.
But it's and then therapists will tell you if they're just being responsible when really they're just getting rid of their liability, and you got a whole bunch of white women who don't know how to take responsibility for anything, and they just like move that onto your life. Oh, we just don't want to take responsibility for anything we say to you, so we're going to tell you that you're the expert on you. When like nobody, I don't know how well I look. You know what I do when I go and get glasses? I take my wife because she's the expert on my face. I don't have to take I don't know my face as well as my wife does. So I take, hey, how do I look in this? Because I don't know how I look in things. You do because you have to look at me. When you go to a wild animal is not the expert on their wildness. They're too busy wilding. I go to the person who has to deal with wild animals to tell you what like wild animals are.
Do we ask 4-year-olds? So what do you think?
What do you think? No, only bad parents ask 4-year-olds. I bet you the parents of these therapists treat their 4-year-olds, the bad ones, treat their therapists as if they're like, well, what do you think about this? And then do what the 4-year-old says in a way that doesn't structure their, like, I think they're just bad parents probably. They're simply bad parents and are confused on why everyone in their life is screwed up. It's because the entire model of therapy of which you've adopted is screwed up. And let's be honest, when you say, well, I just mirror what they do back to them. No, you don't. Because one, you don't mirror everything. You mirror the things that are relevant, which means you made decisions about what's relevant, which means you made decisions. And that's okay. Let's just be honest with yourself about what you do and probably do it better because you're making decisions.
Out of curiosity, as a new parent versus someone with some experience, right, is mirroring the bad behavior actually a legitimate thing that people will try to justify?
No, it's just what you do when you're scared to actually confront people and like just unimaginative.
Okay, I was like, oh God, I can't imagine what I would do if that was my approach.
No, well, the idea that you just mirror bad behavior to people and then hope that they pick it up is like insulting in quite a few different ways. Like and just the amount of self-denial of therapists about what they're doing, that they don't know more than their clients. I mean, why are you there?
Yeah, I was about to say, if I'm the client, I need you to know more.
I need you to know more than me. I need you to help me figure me out. Because if I just go with what I know, I don't know enough.
And if I'm just a test subject, I should be paid.
And if I'm just a test subject, you try something out. No. So there's that one, and then nobody can change. This is the biggest white lady nonsense of it. Nobody can change them except themselves. Do you know what a job does to people? You know
the military, the school.
You know, like, Sin, what would happen if someone gave you a $120,000 job doing HIV training? Would that change you?
That changed a whole lot of me.
That would change. that would only change you. It would change your son. It would change all. Would your mental health problems be the same if you had a $120,000 job doing what you're doing right now?
No, because I wouldn't be stressed. There'd be no anxiety. My heart. I just had my.
I'm not getting rid of my angina.
Let's talk about the defibrillator. I just had the 3-month review after the 3 months of don't do anything on my defibrillator. I walked back in the office having done less things. And by done less things, that means arguing with white people.
Yes.
And
that's our job.
Yeah. It turns out that my defibrillator hasn't even had to pace me, and we can go a whole nother 3 months before we replace it. Remember 3 months ago, Army, they were like, "Oh no, don't do anything, you'll die.
Don't do anything, you'll die." Yeah, no, dealing with like America is stressful. So you give me a $120,000 job, like doing work. You give Black America $120,000 jobs just doing work. Black mental health looks different. Which means we don't need pills. We need good jobs. And any white lady who's telling me anything else or can't really talk about jobs or those other things or say, well, it's all in your head. They need to stay out of my schools. They need to stay out of my community because not even 120. That's a lot. 120, we just be too happy. Like you give every Negro a job, and like not just like sitting on the butt, a job for $70,000. Like mental health in the Black community looks different.
My actual thought when you said 120 was, that's Matthew and I each getting $65,000.
Like $70,000, like a $70,000 job doing regular work where you're treated with a reasonable amount of dignity or just treated fairly. Like classroom management gets different in the schools because all of their parents have $70,000 jobs. Students' anxiety gets different because they go home and their parents are happy. And not fighting, and they're probably together because $70,000 a year jobs like would keep marriages together. So our biggest mental health problem is the degradation. Just don't be the I don't want to be the only Black person at the job. I want a $70,000 job. Working around other Black people who make at least $70,000.
And let's be clear, because if you're the only Black person making $75,000 at the job, you're probably still full of anxiety.
Yeah, because you're probably working around white people.
Still the Black people.
No, you're probably working with other white people for white people. So your job is making white people comfortable. There's that. So, and white people don't have to do that because they also have to make white people comfortable, but they're people, so like it's different.
And that's not, when they occasionally decide not to make each other comfortable, they just claim their land, put a flag up, and decided they're white and no longer what they were previously, and that must be okay.
Yeah. A lot of things, man. So, mental health, the idea that only you can change you and nobody can change other people, no, that's not how the interdependence of America works that secures freedom. And another thing about these mental health professionals, they're not actually trained in ethics. They get like professional ethics, but not like ethics. So they don't know what freedom is. So if you don't know what freedom is, that means you don't know what actual mental health is. If you don't actually know, like if you think only you can change, only the client can change the situation, you don't have the political sensibility or the ethical sensibility to do serious work for people who need a world that's just, who need freedom, right? So if you're talking about, well, I believe in self-determination, but so I don't tell people what to do. No, Like you just have a very naive and vacuous notion of self-determination, which means I guess that's fine if you're talking to other suburban ladies who also like just need to be kept by some white guy out there in the suburbs. But like, stay out of my schools. Just stay out. Out. So like these white MSWs or white social workers like in black schools who don't know like enough to actually tutor anybody but can get away with tutoring white people just need to stay away from black people and stay away from talking about mental health with black people, because what you're talking about ends up being palliative care. It ends up just reifying the caste system, and I don't need that. We need justice, we need jobs, we need security in a way that's not mere survival, but freedom. So if you're just trying to secure survival for black people, that's just palliative care. If you're trying to teach us how, if you're in there trying to counsel us for freedom, substantive freedom, that means you're teaching us about organizing for political power and social power, which means great if you're an ally, but if you weren't trained to do that, because I know your training, and it wasn't that. Even you woke MSWs, you're still self-satisfied like burdens on our community.
You're the worst I interact with.
Yeah, the woke MSWs.
Y'all, I work with a lot of agencies that have
Woke MSWs.
MSWs. Woke MSWs.
Woke MSWs
can't
need to
be
get
told
out
anything.
No. Woke white lady MSWs, go
Yes,
back.
They are like, we are telling you what you need to be doing. Are you asking what? No, you just okay, just checking.
Yeah, you don't know anything about, like, you don't know enough. You don't know enough about freedom. You just know about a profession that's emerged out of white suburban life. And let me talk to you about white suburban life, white suburban women life. Because like when we designed mental health, when we popularized mental health for white women, it wasn't to empower you to take power away from white men. It was just to kind of keep you busy and putting out for white men. Like it wasn't so like the entire discipline is skewed in a deep way. But let me tell you about like a particular kind of suburban atrocity. So we'll start from nature, right? People think that, well, I'm free in nature. And remember, real mental health for humans means promoting freedom. People say, well, I'm free in nature. Yeah, the problem is you're talking to a guy like my dad's from Ghana and he spent a few generations getting here. We know nature. Nature eats you. Nature is not like, so when white hippies talk about like, well, nature is free, and no, man, no. No, nature is like you don't want a pet tiger. Tigers kill people. Like you don't want to pet, they'll eat your baby. You barely want a pet dog. And not like after we've domesticated them for a few tens of thousands of years. You don't want a pet wolf because they'll eat your baby. So nature is indifferent. It's got parasites. Like you don't want to live the natural lifestyle. Natural lifestyle, nobody wants to live natural lifestyle. Washing clothes by hand. No, you want a washing machine. You want things that work, and you don't even want to design it yourself. You want to go to the store and just buy it. That means you want money to buy it and then clean your clothes. You don't want to do things naturally. Because what you think of nature has already been domesticated. So you don't want, so think about like, people who say like, well, freedom is nature. No, freedom comes through things that recognize your inner quality, things that recognize your inner humanity. Nature does not recognize your inner humanity. Nature recognizes that fleshy part on your thigh. Yeah, nature's that spider that bites you. Like nature, and then like in the viruses do not, parasites, they don't recognize your inner humanity. You want things that recognize.
Yeah, diseases are natural.
Diseases are very natural. Nothing more natural than the disease. That floods, all that stuff, nature. So I like a nice pane of glass between me and nature. I like controlled environments. Because I know nature, and it's not the domesticated nature that people who camp do. And I camp from time to time. But like I don't pretend that I'm out in nature because I know it. Like I know, like I said, my dad's from Africa. That's real nature.
I only camp on sites that have been camped on previously,
reek of
humans, so that bears don't even go. I want to come hang out here.
Nature is domesticated. So, and there aren't too many like purely natural places because natural places are dangerous.
Australia.
Yeah. So people who think freedom comes from nature, no, it doesn't come through nature. You don't want you don't want nature because nature eats you. And then they'll say, well, freedom comes through like domesticated, like, well, I want domesticated, so slightly domesticated nature. No, you don't even want freedom. Freedom doesn't come through your pet dog either. Your pet dog isn't nice to you because your pet dog recognizes your humanity. Your pet dog recognizes you like as your familiar. And your cat will eat you before you go cold.
Saying cats.
And your cat will eat. Your cat likes you because you feed it. And once you die, it'll just feed on you. Like your pet dog likes you because you're familiar. And that's why your pet dog barks at the mailman, because your mailman's not familiar. It doesn't like your inner you because you're some sort of inner quality that it wants to promote. No, because you're what it's used to.
The cat would tolerate the mailman as long as he opened that can.
Yeah, the cat will sell you out in a second. Go right after your eyeballs when you croak. Don't have a heart attack. Stay a little bit too still. So your dog likes you not because your dog promotes you and supports you, not because it respects you, but because you're familiar. You're the human it knows, and it bonds that way. So there's that, right? So we don't want something that's just good to us because we're familiar. No, we want something because it's good to us.
That's why I don't own a cat. I mean, I'm not a cat person at all because I don't believe in bringing something into my home that domesticates me.
That's actually true. That's actually true. All right, so the jungle, both like wild and domesticated, is not about your freedom. It's either about like you as food or you as familiar. Then we go to like, let's call the urban jungle. Is the urban jungle about your freedom? You know, you got these shows about like the young ingenue who gets out the plane in Paris and New York and LA and just wants to be a star, and then you know, it turns out, you know, she meets Harvey Weinstein and yeah, they're not about your freedom. That's just another predatory environment. Or the blue chip athlete who goes to college. You're a blue chip athlete. You're a black blue chip athlete. Now you go to a fancy college. And should you seek advice from your coach?
No. All that man cares about is your performance on the field.
Right. You got a bunch of parasites. They're just in human form, but to you are a commodity. You're an object. So like you don't ask your coach about like whether you should, you know, drop a class. Like that's not your coach.
If you ask your coach, should you drop a class? What you're really asking is, can you find a TA that will do this class for me?
Yeah, your food. And so you got this the blue chip athlete who goes. The blue chip athlete is not free as like a scholar athlete. No, because you got agents. Do you ask your agent for advice about what I should do with my life?
Only if it's getting him a higher percentage.
No, your agent's another parasite. So you're just surrounded by paradise. It's just another jungle. It's an urban jungle. They're not worried about your inequality or your humanity. And you need people who are worried about your inequality and humanity, like in order to be free, because you need to be free with someone so you can actually work with someone. Right? So you can't be free without anyone who's actually like not caring about your qualities. But you're not free as like a blue chip athlete.
I mean, if you look at universities and let's just talk about how restricted they are on athletes' social media.
Yeah. I don't even think they're allowed to talk to me. Yeah. The Georgia,
we know they're not allowed.
The Georgia football team isn't probably allowed to. They got this show blocked. Might give them too many ideas.
I'm sure they are giving notifications when anyone searches Black Athenians. Like,
no, that Negro's not for you.
That kid needs to run some more field track.
Yeah. So the urban jungle, you're still alone with surrounded by predatory agents. Those agents just aren't tigers. They're agents. they're agents, or they're people who want to use you. Black people black people in the United States are even used for our rights. Like we got bail bondsmen who love us having rights because like our semblance of rights like
keeps them employed
because they're bail bondsmen. If we didn't have a right to get out, they wouldn't have a right to extract money from us. The surveillance companies make a lot of money with black people having the semblance of rights. I need to get into the ankle monitor game because that's a growth industry. The ankle monitor game.
I mean, technically, even if you look closely at health, I was just reading a letter from the Department of Health about who they can release information to, and it includes The police, without a subpoena, if they're looking for a suspect, hold on,
That's us.
Yeah, like I've been a suspect since the day I was born.
Yeah, that's us, man. So the urban jungle is just you're alone, a bunch of parasites. Now, they're looking for the material interests. The suburban jungle is where you get the mental health professional and the mental health racket. The suburban jungle, still, those people are not worried about your inequality being expressed or your mental health. They're worried about appearing a certain way. Like the suburban jungle will give you a bunch of therapists who go like this. Because they're worried about appearing as if they're listening. They're not worried about actually like listening and helping you figure this out. They're worried about the appearance. They're worried about appearing like therapists. They're worried about like the racket and the appearance racket and having a status as like an MSW or as a school therapist. They're worried about the appearance, their own appearance, not your freedom. They're worried about their own appearance.
Clearly, this is not my therapist, but
Right.
I may have spoken to a therapist in the past who pointed out during most of their sessions, they're thinking about what they're going to wear next week.
Right, to their session so that they look like a therapist.
But they're smiling and nodding.
They're smiling and nodding because like they're not there to help you because that's stressful and you got to take responsibility, and we don't really train white women to take the quality of responsibility that's heaped on black communities. Like I don't know how many white women you know who could stand being a black man. I don't know how many white women you know in the mental health profession who could stand being a black man. They're probably in the mental health profession because they could barely stand being a white woman. Like that's how they got introduced to the mental health profession. So yes,
Let's talk about my favorite psychology person, Jane Elliott.
Jane Elliott.
They can't stay in the room with another
They
white
can't,
woman being mean to them
Yeah.
for an hour.
Yeah, they can't.
Like I just watched her in Britain. She did a 2-hour project. 5 minutes in, the first white woman was out.
She was out. We don't train white women to
Jane
take
says
that
it.
kind of
She's
stress.
Like, yeah, Jane says it. She's like, was anyone here in any danger? Could you walk out that door at any point and been okay? Yeah,
I'm sure some people have shut off this YouTube because like, and yes, I'm talking about you. and your friends just can't take it. No, stay out of my schools. If you can't get through this 45 minutes, you definitely should. If you're like some white therapist who like, well, like I wonder what Iremy has to say about therapists, but somehow you shut this off because I made you feel some sort of way. Get out of my school. Get out of any school with black people. Stop, because you don't have the stomach for the job. It's not built for you.
And make sure you share this with your bridge club of therapists.
Therapists who like get out. Like you don't know enough to do your job because you don't know enough about freedom. You don't know enough because like you weren't taught enough. Because like if you don't think jobs are important, if you don't think like the economics of the economics of a person's life like contributes to their stress, if you think that they just need to change like adopt soft skills and change their mind state, you just don't know enough to be around black people. Like
If you were
enough.
watching this and you're one of the white people more offended by the fact I won't tolerate a cat than the way black people are treated, we might need to talk about how you shouldn't be a therapist.
You shouldn't be a therapist. You don't have the stomach for the job, not with black people. And the only reason you have a stomach for the job, like in talking to white people, is because they don't expect you to change anything. They don't take you seriously either. Like they just don't expect you to change
They
anything.
walk out of your sessions going, see, I knew I was right.
Yeah,
I'm sorry I treated him wrong.
They're paying you to indulge the shit out of them, and you will take their money to indulge the shit out of them.
Ooh, how'd I get that job?
Yeah. Well, the white people don't play black people. Well, white people aren't going to play
they
black
don't pay
therapists.
communities.
Yeah, they're not
I
going
agree that
to. They're not going to play black therapists to indulge them. They'll play black, I don't know, something else to indulge them. But they want to pay other white women pay other white women to indulge the crap out of them. This is one reason why actually couples therapy is so hard, and couples therapists are so hard to find. And especially the ones who do it well, because the whole training has taught them just to indulge the shit out of their client. But when you have two clients with different needs, they can't actually indulge both of them at the same time, so they're just confused. So they say nothing. They say them, or they only see them individually, because like the whole game is just indulging the crap out of the client. The problem is that's not that's not adequate to Black life. Like,
in the chat, Michael Marcel, I want you to know I see what you just said. I got to look into that before I repeat that on the air, but I promise you that's going to be the first thing I research.
I don't know what it is, but I'm sure it's very good. Anyway, keep these white MSWs out of your school unless they've talked to me. I was about to say, unless they've read Francisco Swessling or Dr. Amos Wilson or Dr. Bobby Wright. But I don't even trust them because, like, their interpretations, they might find a way to validate themselves because they're very good at validating them what they already knew. Like, so that's what, and that's yeah.
That's a whole nother show.
That's a whole nother show. So this whole notion that the client is the expert on themselves, that's some white lady stuff. That's just not true in any other aspect of their life. Like, I'm not the expert on, like, if I go to someone and ask you about me, if I were the expert on me, then I wouldn't need you. Like, I'm not the expert on how I look. I'm not the expert on anything about me. I don't know how my brain looks, and it's my brain. Yeah. I need an expert, someone who might know me better than I know myself. And I need therapists who actually admit that they know their clients, because we don't make self-reflective people. We don't make self-reflective people. So just assuming that the client has reflected, like, knows how to interpret themselves is nonsense.
I feel like any therapist that says to you, you know
is
yourself
lying.
better than me, isn't just lying. They're just, like, they're lying at a level that's so deep, damaging.
Right.
You know,
and they'll say that in a room of other therapists. So, like, they really are committed to this con. They're pot committed to this con, because everybody knows it's not true.
I'm about to start adding that to the list of things I tell people. Ask a therapist, do you think you have a potential to know me better than me, or did I know myself the best? I mean, I'm arguing with my therapist, who's a professional, that I don't have PTSD. I'm just Black. She's like,
you should know me better than I know me myself. If you don't, like, I need someone who does. Or, like, yeah, like, I read books all the time written by people who know me better than I know myself. That's why I read their book. Like, I don't read books for just self-satisfaction. I know white people do, and I know unserious people do, and I know unserious white women do this. And this is why, you know, they read a lot of books that just tell them what they want to hear about themselves. I actually need someone who knows me better than I know myself. And so do these kids. And I need if we're going to be serious about mental health, I need doctors who actually take being a doctor seriously. Because if I go to a doctor and the doctor says that I know my cancer more than they do, I'm going to a different doctor. Like, that's important. So there's that, and I need someone who admits that what it is to be a person means to be a person in the world, which means the circumstances of the world matter, not just my inner life.
Don't teach me to tolerate the BS.
Don't teach me to tolerate. Don't teach me to tolerate to change my mind state, or like go in with a positive attitude. Like, no. And like this, like I said, we have an entire discipline that's grown up around a population that we kept out of the workforce, so they don't know what a job means. Like, they don't know what a job was. We built an entire discipline around middle and upper middle class white women who, like, don't have the same relationship to a job that everybody else does. So, like, yeah, a job changes people.
Changes the hours you sleep.
Changes the hours. Changes everything
how
about
much joy you have that day.
Yeah. So, like, we need, and actually participating in civil society as, like, a worker is actually important for freedom, because you produce and you produce and you consume, but you produce also. One of the reasons why mental health grew up, like, white women had mental health problems, is because they weren't productive members of civil society in the right way. So we built an entire discipline around the notion that being a productive member in civil society doesn't really matter, because we built therapy as a kind of panacea for women who were dealing with the ennui of not being a productive member of civil society. And bounding them to home and all of this other stuff. So there are lots of reasons why you need to get these suburban white women out of my schools. But we do need counselors and mental health professionals in schools. They just need to be trained by me, or someone, like, with my sensibilities. How long is the show?
44?
Oh, 44 minutes. Good. All right. I hope you've enjoyed this. Go ahead. If you like what I'm doing, would you believe that, the kind of wisdom I give every week might make me somewhat unemployable? So I'm going to need you to go to www.thefunkyacademic.com and sign up. Sign up for a $5, $15, or $50 a month donation. I give you a show every week that kind of goes deep into the fabric of our lives. I'm creating a legacy.
It will not include a job in the public sector.
No, that may not. Oh, in the private sector. Private sector.
Private
I'm done with the private sector. Is not going to hire me after this. So that's my whole life. So I'm not working for the private sector. I might be able to work for the public sector if my dissertation's very, very good, which I think it might end up being very, very good. However,
Private sector ain't happening.
private sector's not happening, and I do need you to secure my rent for this space that I'm working in, and I'd like to pay some people and pay for more advertising and just get the message out. So not only do I need you to send this video out to all of your friends and social workers and mental health professionals and send this on Twitter and put it on your Facebook and all that stuff and all your groups, I need you to just go over to thefunkyacademic.com and sign up for a membership because I provide a service to the people.
Probably the money's probably going to better places than most your tithes.
Right. You don't need the tithe necessarily. All right. Thanks for your time. I will see you next week. Peace.